brought to you by Soundlibra.com. You can find a direct link to our full library in the description of this audio, or visit us anytime at Soundlibra.com. Hello, and welcome to Talk to Your Kids, Build Unbreakable Bonds. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lisa. We're so excited to embark on this journey with you, exploring how open, honest conversations can create truly lasting connections with our children.
Just a quick heads up before we get started. While we're sharing research-based communication strategies, we aren't medical or mental health professionals, so please treat this as an educational guide and consult a professional for specific family needs.
That's a great point. It's all about adding tools to your parenting toolbox. In this first episode, we're laying the groundwork. We'll talk about why talking matters so much and introduce the idea of building unbreakable bonds through communication. It's a skill that takes practice and intention.
It's easy to get caught up in daily chaos and forget to prioritize these conversations. Or perhaps we try, but it doesn't go as planned, leaving us feeling defeated.
Those everyday conversations are the glue that holds families together. They create a bedrock of trust and understanding. When your child feels truly heard and understood, they are more likely to open up with their triumphs, worries, and even mistakes.
So, it's not just about sharing information, it's about building a relationship, an emotional connection.
Precisely. This connection forms those unbreakable bonds. It's about creating a safe space where your child knows they can be themselves and still be accepted and loved. This safe space is built intentionally, word by word, interaction by interaction.
As parents, we often want to protect our children from hurt. This instinct can lead us to shut down uncomfortable conversations or jump in too quickly with solutions instead of just listening.
That's a really important point, Lisa. Our immediate impulse is often to fix things. But what do they truly need? Often, it's just to feel validated and know that their feelings are real and important.
So, validation is a key component of this foundation. It's like saying, I see you, I hear you, and your feelings are okay.
Yes, validation is powerful. When we validate our child's experience, we acknowledge the emotion behind it without necessarily agreeing with their behavior. For example, instead of saying, don't be silly when they're upset about not having a second cookie, you could say, I understand you're feeling disappointed because you really wanted another cookie.
That makes such a difference. It shifts it from a lecture to an understanding. It communicates empathy.
Empathy. When children feel empathy from us, they learn to show empathy to others. This is how we teach them social and emotional intelligence, not just through instruction, but through lived experience within the family. This foundational skill of talking and listening, of validating and empathizing, sets the stage for every stage of their development.
It really is the bedrock. And this concept of building unbreakable bonds through conversation would apply to a toddler as much as a teenager, though the approach might differ, right?
Absolutely. The core principles remain the same, but the implementation shifts. For very young children, it's about simple, consistent connection. It's about narrating their world, asking them simple questions, and responding with warmth. For example, with a toddler, you might say, look, a doggy. Woof woof. The doggy is big. You're labeling, engaging, and showing them their world is interesting to you.
And even though they might not form complex sentences, they're absorbing the tone, the attention, the feeling of being engaged.
Exactly. That feeling of being seen and heard is built from the very first interactions. As they grow, those simple interactions evolve. We move to, how did the doggy make you feel? Or, what do you think the doggy was doing? We invite their thoughts and feelings into the conversation.
So, this first episode is about setting that intention. It's about understanding that the conversations we have, or choose not to have, are actively shaping our relationship with our children.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. Communication isn't just a means to an end, like getting them to do chores. It's the process itself that builds the relationship. Even when it's difficult, making that effort to connect, to listen, to validate, is where those unbreakable bonds are forged.
And it creates a positive cycle. When children feel safe and connected, they are more likely to communicate openly. When they communicate openly, we have more opportunities to connect and validate, further strengthening that bond.
Think of it like tending a garden. You need to water it consistently, provide sunlight, and tend to it. Our children are like those gardens, and conversation is the water and sunlight that helps them grow into strong individuals with deep connections to us. This consistent watering of conversation and connection keeps that bond alive and growing.
And we'll be diving into specific strategies for different age groups in the coming episodes. For now, the takeaway is that intentional, empathetic communication is the absolute foundation for building those strong, unbreakable bonds with our children. It's about creating a space where they feel safe, heard, and valued.
We've talked about the why talking matters, and why it builds unbreakable bonds. We've introduced creating a safe space through intentional communication, emphasizing validation and empathy. We've also touched on how these principles apply across different ages.
And in our next episode, we'll zoom in on that very start. We'll explore actionable ways to foster connection and communication with our youngest listeners, our toddlers and preschoolers. We'll look at how to engage their world and begin building those communication pathways right from the beginning.
That sounds like a fantastic next step. So, remember, your conversations are powerful. They are the building blocks of connection. Keep talking, keep listening, and keep building those unbreakable bonds.
Join us next time as we discuss little ears, big worlds, talking with toddlers and preschoolers.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored why talking matters and how it builds connection. Now, let's talk with toddlers and preschoolers.
Yes, those years are so crucial, Alex. They're learning about the world at an incredible pace, and their language skills are exploding. But sometimes it can feel like we're just talking at them, or that they're not really understanding.
That's a perfectly relatable feeling, Lisa. The key with toddlers and preschoolers is to remember that their communication is often less about complex sentences and more about connection and exploration. It's about being present and engaging with their world.
So, it's not about lecturing them, even if they're saying something we want to correct or guide.
Exactly. Think of it less like a formal lesson and more like a shared adventure. For toddlers, especially, a lot of communication is nonverbal or uses very simple words. They're pointing, they're babbling, they're showing us things. Our job is to respond to that, to validate their actions and their attempts to communicate.
How do we do that effectively? For instance, if a toddler is pointing at a dog and making a sound, what's the best way to respond?
Great question. Instead of just saying, yes, dog, you can expand on it. You might say something like, wow, you see that big, fluffy dog. Isn't he cute? You're mirroring their excitement, using descriptive words, and encouraging them to perhaps make their own sound for the dog, or even try to say dog. You're building on their interest.
So, we're giving them language to attach to what they're experiencing. That makes sense. It's like giving them a word for the feeling or the object they're drawn to.
Precisely. And this is where play becomes an incredibly powerful tool. Toddlers and preschoolers learn through play. So, when you're playing with them, whether it's building blocks, playing with cars, or having a tea party, narrate what's happening. Oh, you build a tall tower. It's so high. Or the red car is zooming really fast.
I can imagine that not only helps them learn new words, but also teaches them about cause and effect and social interaction if they're playing with others.
Absolutely. And it fosters a sense of partnership, doesn't it? You're in their world, sharing their joy, and showing them that their interests are important to you. This makes them feel seen and heard. Now, moving slightly towards the preschooler stage, We can start introducing more open-ended questions.
That's a shift from the simple responses for toddlers. What are open-ended questions, and why are they important for preschoolers?
Open-ended questions are those that can't be answered with a simple yes or no, or a single word. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have fun at the park?" which can be answered with yes, you'd ask, "What was the most fun thing you did at the park today?"
So that prompts them to recall details and actually describe their experience.
Exactly. It encourages them to think, to elaborate, and to use their growing vocabulary. Other examples include, "What do you think will happen next?" Or, "How did you make that picture?" These questions invite them to share their thoughts, their ideas, and their perspective. They become little storytellers.
And this process helps them develop their critical thinking skills, doesn't it? They have to process information and then articulate it.
It absolutely does. And it also builds their confidence. When we ask for their thoughts and listen to their answers, we're signaling that their opinions matter. This is crucial for their self-esteem and their sense of agency. Remember, at this age, they're just beginning to understand themselves as separate individuals with their own thoughts and feelings.
It's about validating their internal world. So, when they're, say, having a tantrum because they can't have a cookie right before dinner, how do open-ended questions fit in there? That seems like a tough moment for conversation.
That's a perfect example of a challenging but important communication moment. First, acknowledge their feeling. Even if you can't give them the cookie, you can say, "I see you're feeling very frustrated right now because you really want a cookie." This shows you understand their emotion, even if you're holding the boundary.
So, naming the emotion is key before trying to problem solve.
Absolutely. Once the intensity is perhaps lowered a little, you might then try a gentle question like, "What can we do to help you feel better right now, since we'll have dinner soon?" Or, "Tell me more about why you want the cookies so much." This doesn't mean you're giving in, but you're still engaging with their desire and helping them verbalize it. It's about teaching them that even difficult emotions can be communicated and understood.
That sounds like setting the stage for emotional regulation later on. By helping them express their feelings now, we're equipping them with the tools for the future.
You've hit on a vital point, Lisa. We're not just talking about words, we're talking about building emotional intelligence. And a significant part of this, especially with younger children, is observation. We need to be keen observers of their cues, their body language, and their play.
What do you mean by keen observers?
It means paying attention to what captures their interest, what makes them giggle, what makes them pause, even what makes them a little hesitant. If your toddler is repeatedly pushing a specific block into a hole, they might be exploring concepts like fitting, shape, or perseverance. Your response could be, "You're really good at fitting that block in there. It goes right in." You're reflecting their action and perhaps introducing a new word related to it.
So, it's about being present and noticing the small details of their explorations. It's not just about the grand conversations.
Precisely. And this leads us to the idea of language modeling. Even though they might not be fully processing everything we say, they're absorbing the rhythm, the tone, and the vocabulary. So, when we speak clearly, use a variety of words, and express ourselves with enthusiasm, we are subtly teaching them how to communicate.
That's a powerful, almost subconscious form of teaching, isn't it? They're picking up on our communication style.
It really is. Think about it. If you use a rich vocabulary at home, introduce new words and context, and express yourself in engaging ways, your child is naturally going to be exposed to a broader linguistic landscape. And it's not just about the words themselves, but also about the positive interactions. When you respond to their babbling with a smile and a warm tone, you're creating a positive association with communication.
So, consistent, positive interactions are the building blocks. How often should we be aiming for these kinds of conversations? Is it a constant stream of talking?
It doesn't need to be a constant high-energy stream. What's more effective are moments of focused connection. It might be during meal times, during bath time, or that special time before bed. These are opportunities to slow down and truly engage. Even just a few minutes of focused, back-and-forth conversation can be incredibly impactful.
So, quality over sheer quantity. It's about being intentional during those moments.
Yes, intentionality is key. And it's also about being patient. Language development in toddlers and preschoolers is a journey. There will be days when they're incredibly chatty and days when they seem to revert to younger ways of communicating. That's all normal. Our role is to remain a steady, encouraging presence.
I think that's a really important reassurance for parents. It's easy to get discouraged if your child isn't speaking in full sentences by a certain age.
Absolutely. And remember the power of repetition. Young children learn through hearing things multiple times. So don't be afraid to use the same words and phrases in different contexts. If you're talking about shapes, you might say circle when looking at a ball, at a clock, or at a plate. This repetition helps them solidify their understanding.
That's a great reminder for parents who might feel like they're repeating themselves too much. It's actually a necessary part of learning for kids.
It truly is. So, to recap our discussion on talking with toddlers and preschoolers, we focused on several key areas. First, we emphasized responding to their cues, whether verbal or nonverbal, and expanding on their attempts to communicate. We also talked about the incredible power of play as a vehicle for conversation and language learning.
And we touched on the importance of using open-ended questions with preschoolers to encourage them to think and elaborate, which builds their confidence and critical thinking.
Right? We also highlighted the value of being keen observers of their interests and actions, and how modeling positive language and engaging communication is a continuous, subtle form of teaching. And finally, we stressed the importance of intentional, quality moments of connection and the power of patient, positive repetition.
It all boils down to creating a secure, responsive environment where they feel safe to explore, express, and learn through talking. It's about building that foundation of connection, one word, one gesture, one shared moment at a time.
Exactly. And this foundation is what will carry them as they grow. Speaking of growth, next episode, we'll be diving into the world of school-aged children. We'll explore how their communication needs change as they become more independent and start navigating friendships and school.
That sounds like a fascinating transition. Join us next time as we continue on this journey of building unbreakable bonds through conversation.
Welcome back to Build Unbreakable Bonds. Last time, we talked with toddlers and preschoolers. Today, we're in episode 3, focusing on school-aged explorers.
It's that age where curiosity really blossoms. They're asking more complex questions about their world, friendships, and feelings.
Exactly. As parents, our communication needs to evolve. We can't just give simple answers. We need to foster their inquiry and help them process the world. Remember building a foundation of trust? That's even more critical now.
So, it's about shifting from providing information to guiding their understanding, especially with all the new information they encounter.
The key is to embrace their curiosity. Their questions signal engagement and a feeling of safety. See questions like, why is the sky blue? Or how do airplanes fly? As opportunities for dialogue.
So, instead of just saying because, we encourage them to elaborate on their thoughts.
Precisely. Mirror their question back. That's interesting. What do you think might be the reason? Or what makes you wonder about that? This validates their thought process and helps them articulate their reasoning, a powerful problem-solving skill.
So, we guide them toward discovering the answer themselves. If a child asks why a plant needs sunlight, we could ask, what do you think happens to plants if they don't get any light?
That's a fantastic example. This extends to their social world too. School-aged children navigate complex friendships, learn about fairness, and experience many emotions. When they come to you with a problem like so-and-so won't share, resist the urge to jump in with a solution.
Ah, the urge to be the fixer. I know that feeling well.
Me too. Instead of saying, well, you should just tell them, or that's not fair, try asking, how did that make you feel when they wouldn't share? Or what do you think could happen if you tried talking to them about it? This encourages empathy and helps them consider others' perspectives.
So, we're helping them unpack the emotional aspect and think through potential outcomes. This sounds like building their emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. It's about transitioning from simple answers to more nuanced discussions. Discussing fairness with an 8-year-old involves understanding intentions, consequences, and different viewpoints. We're helping them build a mental library of social strategies.
It's like giving them tools to navigate situations, rather than just telling them what to do in one instance.
Exactly. This guided discovery is also crucial when they start asking about bigger, sometimes challenging world events or concepts. They might hear things at school or on the news and begin asking questions about diversity or environmental issues.
That can be intimidating. How do we answer questions about complex topics without overwhelming them?
It can be. The principle remains honesty, age appropriateness, and empowerment. If you don't have all the answers, it's okay to say, that's a thoughtful question. I don't have the full answer right now, but let's find out together. This models lifelong learning.
So, we're not expected to be encyclopedias. We're learning partners.
Precisely. And when discussing sensitive topics, the goal isn't to shield them from reality, but to help them understand it manageably, building resilience. Focus on positive actions and guiding values. For example, with environmental concerns, talk about recycling or planting trees. It empowers them to feel they can make a difference.
It shifts the focus from a problem to potential solutions and their role. It's a proactive approach.
And it ties back to those foundational listening skills. This stage is about active listening, not just hearing. When your child talks about their day or a problem, are you truly listening or already formulating a response? School-age kids become aware of this. They sense if you're distracted.
That's a great reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in multitasking.
It is. So, dedicating those moments, even if short, to being fully present is powerful. Put down your phone, make eye contact, and engage. Ask follow-up questions. You mentioned Sarah said X. What did you do then? Or, you said you felt frustrated. Can you tell me more about that feeling? These invite deeper sharing.
So, we reinforce that their feelings and experiences are valid and important enough to warrant our full attention. This helps build the unbreakable bond we're talking about.
Absolutely. It's also recognizing that school-age children are developing independence. They form opinions and may not always agree with us. This is healthy. Our conversations shouldn't always be about them agreeing with our perspective. It's about them learning to express their own thoughts respectfully, and for us to model that same respect.
So, when they present a differing opinion, instead of shutting it down, we can explore it. That's an interesting way to see it. What makes you think that?
Exactly. You're not necessarily agreeing, but you're validating their right to a different perspective and encouraging them to articulate their reasoning. This helps them develop critical thinking and a strong sense of self. It's a dance between guiding and allowing them to explore their evolving identity.
It sounds like we're helping them build their own internal compass, rather than just following our directions.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And this builds towards more complex social interactions we'll cover. When they deal with peer pressure, ethical dilemmas, or romantic interests, the ability to have open, honest, explorative conversations built on this foundation will be invaluable.
So, to recap, for school-aged children, encourage open-ended questions to foster curiosity. Use their questions as dialogues and help them explore feelings and problem-solving. Be learning partners, not just answer givers, especially for complex topics or differing opinions. Crucially, be fully present and actively listen to validate their experiences.
You've hit all the key points. It's about nurturing their growing independence while maintaining strong connection. It's about embracing the why and encouraging the what if. These conversations are building blocks for a lifetime of understanding and support. And as they continue to grow, their questions will become more sophisticated and their emotional landscapes more intricate. Next episode, we'll be diving into the exciting world of friendships, feelings, and firsts as they enter the tween years. We'll explore how these communication strategies evolve to support them through those significant developmental milestones.
That sounds fascinating. So, get ready for episode 4, where we'll explore the transition into the tween years.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered talking with school-age children. Now, let's dive into the tween years.
The tween years, that stage between childhood and adolescence. Friendships deepen, emotions intensify, and self-discovery begins.
Indeed, parents aim to keep that connection strong, yet acknowledge growing independence and peer influence. How we talk effectively with tweens.
The active listening and validation we discussed are key. Tweens need a supportive presence as they navigate this in-between stage.
Let's focus on friendships. For tweens, friend are central. Conflicts can feel world-ending. How do we handle these conversations?
Acknowledge the seriousness of their friendships. When they're upset about a friend, respond with empathy. Try saying, "That sounds incredibly tough. I can see how upset you are," or "It must feel awful to be left out."
Exactly. So, instead of saying, "Oh, you'll make new friends," which dismisses their feelings, you're validating their current experience. You're showing them that their pain is seen and understood. This builds trust.
And it opens the door for them to tell you more. Once they feel heard, they might be more willing to explore solutions or just benefit from talking it through. I often find myself asking clarifying questions like, "What happened next?" or "How did that make you feel?" instead of jumping to advice.
That's a great strategy. It encourages them to process their own thoughts and feelings. Now, another big area for tweens is the burgeoning awareness of their own bodies and the bodies of others. This is often when comparisons start and self-consciousness kicks in.
Oh, absolutely. Suddenly, they're noticing differences, whether it's about height, weight, or developing features. And with social media, the pressure to conform to certain idealized images can be immense. This is a minefield for parents.
It really is. The goal here is to foster a positive body image and self-esteem, not by lecturing, but by creating an environment where they feel safe talking about these insecurities. We've touched on validating feelings, and that applies directly here too.
So, if our tween expresses worry about their appearance, instead of saying, "Don't be silly, you look fine," we could say, "It sounds like you're feeling a bit worried about that. Tell me more about what's on your mind."
Precisely. When they express a specific concern, like feeling too tall or not develop enough, you can acknowledge it. I understand you're noticing that difference, and it's making you feel self-conscious. Then gently pivot to the idea of individuality and health.
That makes so much sense. It's about normalizing that everyone's body is different and that these changes happen at different times. We want to convey that their worth isn't tied to how they look or how they compare to others.
And it's crucial to model this ourselves. If we're constantly talking about our own perceived flaws or dieting, they're absorbing that message. We need to demonstrate self-acceptance and a focus on health and well-being over appearance. Are we talking about what we're eating? Are we commenting on others' appearances? Our kids are watching and listening.
A powerful point. Our own habits speak volumes. So, for body image conversations, it's about open, non-judgmental dialogue, acknowledging their feelings, and emphasizing that healthy bodies come in all shapes and sizes, and that their value comes from within.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about the broader emotional landscape. Tweens are starting to experience a wider spectrum of emotions, and they can be very confusing for them. Think about early crushes, feelings of disappointment that are more profound, or even early anxieties about the future.
Yes, the emotions seem to get amplified. They might swing from extreme happiness to deep sadness or frustration with very little apparent cause, which can be unsettling for both the child and the parent.
It can be. Our role here, again, is to help them label these feelings and understand that they're normal. We can use simple language. It sounds like you're feeling really disappointed about that. Or, I can see you're feeling frustrated because. These labels help them make sense of their internal world.
And by labeling it, we're not saying this is how you should feel. We're just reflecting back what we're observing and giving them the words to describe it. It's about building their emotional vocabulary.
Absolutely. And remember that mantra from earlier episodes: listen without fixing. When a tween shares a problem that seems small to us, like a misunderstanding with a friend over a video game, it's a big deal to them. Our instinct might be to offer a quick fix. But instead, can we just listen and ask, what are you thinking about doing? Or how do you want to handle this?
This empowers them to find their own solutions, building their confidence and problem-solving skills. It shows we trust their ability to navigate these situations. It's not about the magnitude of the problem. It's about their experience of it.
Precisely. We're building their internal compass. Now, let's touch on peer pressure. While it's more pronounced in the teen years, tweens are starting to feel the pull of wanting to fit in with their friends, and this can lead to situations where they might feel pressured to do things they're not comfortable with.
This is a tough one. They're starting to want more independence, but they also crave belonging. So, how do we equip them to say no or to come to us if they feel uncomfortable?
Again, it comes back to open communication and establishing a safe space. You can have these conversations before a situation arises. Role-playing can be surprisingly effective. Imagine your friends want you to do X, and you don't want to. What could you say?
That's brilliant. Giving them practice in a safe environment. And we can also help them identify what makes them uncomfortable. What feels wrong about that? What are your gut instincts telling you?
And the key is to avoid making them feel ashamed or stupid if they've already succumbed to pressure. If they come to you, even after making a mistake, your reaction should be supportive, not punitive. Thank you for telling me. That was a brave thing to do. Let's talk about how we can handle this or avoid it next time.
That "thank you for telling me" is so important. It reinforces that coming to us is the safe and right choice, no matter what. It ensures that door stays open for future conversations.
It does. So, to recap this stage, for tweens, friendships are paramount, and navigating those dynamics requires empathy and validation. Their bodies are changing, leading to potential self-consciousness, so fostering positive body image through open, non-judgmental dialogue is key. Emotions are becoming more complex, and our role is to help them label and understand these feelings. Finally, peer pressure starts to emerge, and we can equip them with proactive strategies and a safe space to discuss uncomfortable situations.
It really boils down to being present, being a good listener, and fostering a sense of trust so they feel comfortable sharing both the triumphs and the struggles of this formative period.
Absolutely. And as they move through these tween years, we'll observe even more significant shifts in how they communicate and how they see themselves in relation to the world. This naturally leads us to the next stage.
The teen years. I can already feel the ground shifting. It sounds like the communication dynamics will need to evolve quite a bit.
They certainly will. Join us for our next episode, where we'll tackle the exciting and sometimes challenging world of talking with teenagers. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time, we explored talking with tweens. Now, let's navigate the teen talk tightrope.
The teen years. It conjures excitement and apprehension. How do we adjust our communication when our children are growing so fast?
It's about adjusting, not abandoning. Remember the safe space we discussed? That foundation is crucial now. Teenagers face new social pressures, academic demands, and evolving identities. They still need us, but differently. We must embrace a more conversational, less interrogative approach.
So, instead of how was school? Who did you talk to? We shift to something more open-ended.
Exactly. Think of it as moving from interrogation to genuine dialogue. Those daily check-ins are vital, but the style must evolve. Instead of what did you learn in science? Try anything interesting spark your curiosity today? Or did anything make you laugh at school? It's about inviting them to share, not demanding information.
That feels less like a test and more like an invitation. The response rate might be higher.
We hope so. It's about showing you're interested in their world, not just monitoring it. This shift also honors their growing need for autonomy. They're learning to make their own decisions. Our role is to be their trusted advisor, not constant supervisor.
It's like they're taking the steering wheel, and we're in the passenger seat, ready with advice if needed.
That's a perfect analogy. Another key element is acknowledging and validating their experiences. Teenagers feel things intensely. Their friendships, disappointments, victories, they're all significant. When they share something, even if it seems minor to us, it's huge for them. Instead of jumping in with solutions or minimizing their feelings, try to reflect back what you're hearing.
Can you give an example of validation?
Sure. Imagine your teen is upset because a friend didn't invite them to a party. An ineffective response might be, "Oh, well, you have other friends." A better response is, "It sounds like you feel really left out and hurt that you weren't invited to the party. That must be tough." We're not trying to fix the friendship or tell them how to feel, but acknowledging their current emotion.
By saying, it sounds like you feel, you show you're truly hearing them and understanding their perspective.
Precisely. This is empathic listening. We step into their shoes to see the world from their vantage point. This builds trust, and trust is the currency of connection during the teen years. When they know they can share their struggles and be met with understanding, they're more likely to come to you with bigger issues.
That leads to tackling tough questions and sensitive topics. We're moving from general check-ins to more specific and sometimes daunting conversations.
This is where the communication roadmaps we've built come into play. Remember those rituals for constant connection? Those small, consistent interactions create an open channel. When a sensitive topic arises about relationships, peer pressure, or mental health, your consistent communication makes that conversation possible.
So, it's not about waiting for a crisis to have a serious talk, but about building.
Welcome back to Talk to Your Kids, Build Unbreakable Bonds. Last time, we explored communicating with teenagers. Today, we're tackling tough questions. The why and what if that leave us momentarily stumped.
Oh, Alex, those questions. As children grow, their curiosity expands into complex and sometimes unsettling territory. They move from asking why the sky is blue to asking deeper questions about life and society.
Exactly, Lisa. These aren't simple facts. They often touch on sensitive topics like death, divorce, or social injustices. Our goal is to equip you with a framework for honest, age-appropriate discussions that build trust, not shut down conversation. We're building on that safe space concept where any question is welcome.
So, when a child asks a question that feels big or upsetting, what's the very first step? Our own reaction feels like the immediate hurdle.
That's precisely where we start. Before formulating an answer, manage your own reaction. Children are perceptive. If they sense your panic or discomfort, they learn to avoid these topics. Take a breath. Remind yourself, this is an opportunity, not a crisis. This is where your established safe space truly shines.
A breath. Okay. So, I've taken my breath. What's next? Do I answer immediately, or is there a step to understand the question first?
Great question. Often, a tough question isn't as straightforward as it seems. It might be driven by fear or curiosity. So, the next step is to clarify. Ask clarifying questions. Instead of launching into an explanation about a grave illness, ask, "What makes you ask about that today?" Or, "What have you been thinking about?" This helps you gauge their understanding and their specific concern.
That's smart. It's like being a detective, uncovering the root of their inquiry before providing information. So, if my child asks, "Are people going to die?" because they saw something on the news, I wouldn't jump into a lecture on mortality. I'd ask, "What made you think about people dying today?" Or, "What are you worried about right now?"
Exactly. That clarification leads to a more tailored path. Once you understand their concern, you can begin to answer. And when we say answer, we mean providing age-appropriate information. This is perhaps the most critical piece. What's appropriate for a 5-year-old is vastly different from what's appropriate for a 12-year-old.
This is where age appropriateness really shines. For very young children, we use simpler terms and perhaps metaphors. Talking about death might be explained by comparing it to a character in a story who has gone on a long journey and won't return. It's about conveying finality without introducing fear.
Precisely. And for older children, you can introduce more complexity, but still with clarity and honesty. It's crucial not to overload them. For instance, if a child asks about divorce, you might explain it as two grown-ups deciding they can't be married anymore, but they will always be parents. You focus on the tangible impact on the child, not the intricate details of adult relationships.
So we're simplifying but not lying. It's providing the essential truth in a digestible way for their developmental stage. What about the what if questions? Those hypothetical scenarios that stretch our parenting skills, like, what if something bad happens to us?
The what if questions. These often stem from a child's need for security and reassurance. When faced with these, acknowledge their concern and then pivot to what you can control and what safety measures are in place. You can say something like, "That's a scary thought, isn't it? It's good to think about. Thankfully, we have things to help keep us safe. Remember how we have a fire drill? It's like that. We have plans for different situations."
So, instead of just saying, "Don't worry," you validate their feeling and then highlight existing safety nets. That's a powerful way to build resilience. It empowers them by showing that precautions exist and that we, as parents, have considered these possibilities.
Exactly. And it's an opportunity to check in with yourself. Are you feeling overly anxious about these what if scenarios? If so, it might be a sign you need to process those feelings or seek support. Children can mirror our anxieties. So, while teaching them to be brave, we also need to be brave ourselves in confronting our own fears.
That's such an important point. We can't effectively guide our children through difficult conversations if we're drowning in our own anxieties. It sounds like honesty, age appropriateness, and reassurance are the cornerstones. But what if the question touches on something truly sensitive, like illness or death, and you don't have all the answers?
That's a very common scenario, and it's perfectly okay to admit when you don't know. In fact, saying, "I don't know, but I can find out for you," is a fantastic way to model lifelong learning and deepen trust. Instead of making up an answer or deflecting, you're showing them it's okay to be unsure and that seeking knowledge is positive.
I don't know, but I can find out for you. That's a brilliant phrase. It shifts the focus from you having to be all-knowing to you being a partner in discovery with your child. It also buys you time to find accurate, age-appropriate information.
Indeed. And when you're providing information, particularly on sensitive topics, remember to frame it within your family's values and beliefs. For example, if you're discussing a loss, you might include comforting rituals or spiritual beliefs important to your family. This provides a sense of comfort and continuity.
So, the explanation isn't just about facts, it's about context and meaning within our family. What about when the question is about something controversial, like social issues or current events? How do we navigate those without imposing our own biases too heavily, but still guiding them towards thoughtful perspectives?
This is where dialogue becomes key, rather than just a monologue. For these kinds of questions, it's often best to present different viewpoints in a balanced way. Encourage critical thinking by asking your child what they think or what someone else might think. For instance, if they ask about a protest, explain that some people are protesting because they feel strongly about an issue and others might have different opinions. The goal isn't to give them the right answer immediately, but to help them develop the ability to consider different perspectives.
So, we're fostering critical thinking and empathy. We're teaching them how to think, not just what to think. This moves beyond just answering a question and into shaping their understanding of the world.
Exactly. And as we discuss these topics, it's vital to keep reinforcing that your home is a safe place for these conversations. If a child asks a tough question and you've handled it well, they're much more likely to come to you with future questions rather than seeking answers from peers or less reliable sources. Every tough question answered well is a brick cemented in the foundation of your relationship.
That's a wonderful image, cemented bricks in the foundation of our relationship. So, to recap what we've discussed for tackling tough questions, first, manage your own reaction, take a breath, and remind yourself it's an opportunity. Second, clarify the question to understand your child's specific concern. Third, provide age-appropriate information, simplifying but remaining honest.
Yes, and fourth, for what if scenarios, acknowledge their fear and pivot to reassurance and existing safety measures. Fifth, if you don't know the answer, say so and commit to finding out together. Sixth, frame answers within your family's values and beliefs. Seventh, on controversial topics, encourage critical thinking by presenting different viewpoints and asking for their thoughts. And finally, always reinforce that your home is a safe space for any question.
It's a comprehensive approach, and it really emphasizes that communication is a continuous process. It's not just about answering one question, but about building a habit of open and honest dialogue over time. And it really brings home the idea that when we approach these conversations with care and intention, we're not just answering questions, we're nurturing our children's emotional intelligence and their sense of security.
Absolutely. These moments, as challenging as they may seem, are golden opportunities to strengthen bonds, build trust, and help our children navigate the complexities of life with confidence. It's about showing them that no matter what they encounter or what questions they have a safe harbor with you.
Building on that idea of fostering trust and understanding, our next episode dives deep into the power of truly hearing our children. We'll be exploring the art of active listening, learning to listen without the immediate urge to fix or advise. It's about making our children feel genuinely heard and understood, which is another vital pillar in building those unbreakable bonds.
That's right. So, join us next time as we learn to listen more effectively. Until then, keep those conversations flowing, even the tough ones. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered tackling tough questions. Now let's discuss listening without fixing.
That's right, Alex. We've touched on this idea before, but today we're making it the main event. It's so tempting to jump in and solve every problem, but truly hearing our children without immediately trying to fix their issues can have a profound impact.
Absolutely. And let's start by defining what we mean by listening without fixing. What do you think it is, Lisa?
Well, from my understanding, it's about being fully present with our child when they're sharing something, whether it's a big problem or a small frustration. It means listening to understand their perspective and feelings, rather than immediately formulating a solution or offering advice. It's about prioritizing their emotional experience over a quick fix.
That's a great way to put it. It's the difference between hearing the words and truly listening to the feelings behind them. We often want to be the hero, don't we? Our kids come to us with a problem, and our immediate instinct is to put on our cape and save the day.
Exactly. And on one hand, that comes from a place of love and a desire to protect our children. But sometimes, when we jump straight to fixing, We inadvertently communicate that their feelings aren't big enough to just be heard, or that they're not capable of solving things themselves.
Precisely. Think about it like this. Imagine your friend is telling you about a tough day at work. They're not necessarily looking for you to call their boss. They might just want to vent to feel understood. If you start telling them what they should have done or how to handle their colleagues, that can feel dismissive, even if you have the best intentions. The same applies to our children.
That's a perfect analogy, Alex. So, when our child comes to us upset about a disagreement with a friend, what does listening without fixing look like in practice?
It looks like putting down your phone, making eye contact, and giving them your undivided attention. It means acknowledging their feelings with phrases like, "That sounds really frustrating," or "I can see how upset you are." It's about reflecting their emotion back to them, letting them know you've heard the feeling.
So, instead of saying, "Oh, you should just tell them off," or "Don't worry about it, find another friend," we'd say something like, "It sounds like you were really hurt when Sarah said that."
Exactly. You're validating their emotional experience. You're not agreeing with any specific action they may or may not have taken, but you are confirming that their feelings are real and valid. This is where the without fixing part comes in. You're not trying to solve the friendship issue for them. You're creating a safe space for them to process their emotions about it.
And this is so crucial for building trust, isn't it? When children feel truly heard, they're more likely to open up to us in the future, even when the issues become more complex as they get older. They learn that we're a safe harbor for their emotions, not just a problem-solving machine.
Yes, that's a key takeaway. This practice directly ties back to the foundational importance of connection we discussed in episode 1. When we listen without fixing, we're actively strengthening that bond. We're showing them they matter, that their internal world is important to us. This deepens their sense of security and belonging.
So, when might a parent shift from listening to potentially helping? Is there a point where advice is appropriate?
That's a great question, and it's a delicate balance. Generally, after you've listened and validated their feelings, you can then ask if they'd like help or your thoughts. You might say, "That sounds really tough. Would you like to brainstorm some ideas together? Or would you just like me to listen for a bit longer?" Placing the ball in their court is vital.
So we offer assistance, but we don't impose it. This empowers them to feel in control of their own problem-solving journey. They have the agency to decide if and when they want to tap into our experience.
Precisely. Children are often more capable than we give them credit for. By stepping back from the fixer role, we allow them the space to develop their own coping mechanisms and problem-solving skills. They might surprise us with their resilience. When they've had a chance to talk it through and feel understood, they often find their own solutions or at least a clearer path forward.
Can you give us some examples of how this might look when a child is struggling with something academic, perhaps a difficult homework assignment?
Certainly, if a child is frustrated with a math problem, a fixer parent might just take over and do it for them, or show them the exact steps without much explanation. A listener without fixing parent would start by acknowledging the frustration. "Wow, this looks like a really tricky problem, doesn't it? It's okay to feel stuck."
And then, after validating that feeling,
Then you might ask, "What have you tried so far?" Or "What part of it feels the most confusing?" This encourages them to articulate their thought process. You're guiding them to think about the problem, not solving it for them. You might say, "Tell me where you got stuck." Or, "What's your first thought about how to approach this?"
so it's about guiding their thinking process, gently probing, rather than dictating the answer. This helps them build their own understanding and confidence in tackling such tasks in the future.
Exactly. And it's also about paying attention to their nonverbal cues. Sometimes a child is upset but can't articulate it. They might be withdrawn or showing signs of stress. Active listening also means being attuned to these signals. We can gently inquire, "You seem a little quiet today. Is everything okay?"
That's a very important point, Alex. So many of our children's messages come through their behavior, not just their words. So, what are some common pitfalls parents fall into when they're trying to listen without fixing?
A big one is premature advice giving, as we've discussed. Another is interrupting. "We can't wait to share our wisdom," but interrupting cuts off their flow and can signal that what we have to say is more important than what they're saying. Also, minimizing their problem, saying things like, "Oh, that's not a big deal," or "you'll get over it," can make a child feel like their struggles are insignificant.
I can see how that would shut down communication so quickly. It makes their feelings feel invalid.
It does. And one more pitfall is turning it into a teaching moment too soon. While teaching is important, it needs to come after the validation and the offer to help. If a child is crying because they didn't make the sports team, your first response shouldn't be a lecture about sportsmanship or how to practice harder. It should be, "Oh, sweetheart, I can see you're so disappointed. It's okay to feel sad when you don't get something you worked hard for."
This concept of listening without fixing really shifts the parent's role from problem solver to empathetic companion. It's about walking alongside them through their challenges rather than clearing the path ahead for them.
That's a beautiful way to describe it, Lisa. It cultivates resilience and self-reliance in our children, while also strengthening our relationship with them. It shows them we trust their ability to navigate life, and that we're here to support them emotionally, not just to manage their external circumstances.
This has been incredibly illuminating, Alex. It makes me think about the times I've jumped in too quickly. It's a habit that's hard to break, but the benefits you've outlined are so compelling. Making space for their emotions, truly hearing them without the pressure to fix, is such a powerful gift we can give.
It truly is. And this practice of deep listening and emotional validation sets the stage for the next crucial element in maintaining strong connections, creating consistent opportunities for communication. So, in our next episode, we'll be exploring the power of daily check-ins and how to build simple, effective rituals that foster ongoing connection.
Daily check-ins and creating rituals. That sounds like a fantastic way to ensure we're consistently hearing what's going on with our kids, beyond the moments of crisis. I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered truly listening without fixing. Now let's tackle daily check-ins.
That's right, Alex. We're talking about those consistent, intentional moments built into our everyday lives that ensure we're staying connected with our kids. It's like a daily touch point to make sure the communication lines are always open, even when life gets busy.
Exactly, Lisa. Think about it. We have routines for meals, for bedtime, for getting ready in the morning. Why wouldn't we have a routine for connecting with our children? These daily check-ins aren't about grand, in-depth conversations every single time, but about consistent, small interactions that build trust and understanding over time.
And I think that's a key point, Alex. Rituals can sound a little formal, but at its heart, it's about consistency. It's about creating predictable moments where your child knows they have your attention. This is especially important because as kids grow, their worlds expand. They have school, friends, new interests, and sometimes they might not readily volunteer what's happening unless you create a space for it.
Precisely. So, what are some ways we can weave these check-ins into our lives? We need ideas for different ages and family structures. Let's start with the little ones, our toddlers and preschoolers. For them, simplicity and playfulness are key.
For toddlers and preschoolers, I'm picturing something super short and sweet. Maybe it's during bath time or while you're pushing them on the swing at the park. You could ask, "What was your favorite thing in school today?" Or "What made you giggle?" It's very open-ended.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a question. Sometimes it's just stating an observation and inviting them to share. "Wow, you built a really tall tower. What was it like to make it so high?" Or, during a quiet moment, "Tell me about your drawing." The goal is to signal, "I'm interested in your world."
That makes sense. And for this age group, even a simple observation can be a prompt. "I saw you sharing your toys today. That was kind." Then, if they choose to elaborate, they can. If not, you've still acknowledged their actions and opened the door.
Right? Now, let's move up to school-aged children. Around ages 6 to 10, their world is getting bigger, and they might be more reluctant to share everything with an adult. This is where slightly more structured, but still informal, check-in can be very effective.
I'm thinking of the classic car ride home from school. That's often a prime time. They're a little tired, a little relaxed, and maybe ready to decompress. Instead of bombarding them with "How was school?" which can feel overwhelming, maybe start with something less direct.
Yes, instead of "How was school?" try "What was the most interesting thing you learned today?" Or "Who did you play with at recess?" Or even "What was the funniest thing that happened today?" Framing it positively can encourage more sharing.
And I love the idea of picking a specific, small detail. Asking about recess, for instance, is much more concrete than a broad school. It gives them something specific to latch onto.
Exactly. Another popular one is a high five and low five check-in, or a rose and thorn check-in. A high five could be something great that happened, and a thorn something not so great. This gives them a structure to share both the ups and downs of their day.
That's a great way to introduce the idea that days have both good and bad parts, and that it's okay to talk about both. It's about normalizing the full spectrum of experience.
And for older kids, say late elementary and early middle school, something as simple as sitting down for a snack together without distractions can be golden. Put phones away, turn off the TV, and just be present.
That brings us to tweens and early teens. This is a critical period for connection, but also a time when kids can start to pull away. Our check-ins need to be sensitive to this shift.
Indeed, for tweens, the focus can shift slightly from what happened to how they felt about what happened. Instead of just asking about their day, you might ask, "What was the most challenging part of your day?" Or "What are you looking forward to tomorrow?"
And it's about being flexible, isn't it? Sometimes they might not want to talk right then. The important thing is that the offer is there consistently. So, a quick hug and a "Hey, I'm here if you want to talk about anything later" can be just as powerful.
That's a perfect example of respecting their space while maintaining the connection. It's a delicate dance. For teens, especially, these check-ins can become shorter, more like passing comments. But those comments are crucial. "Hey, thinking of you. Hope your presentation went well." Or just a simple, "How are things?" with a genuine pause to listen.
And it's not always about asking direct questions. Sometimes it's about sharing a little bit of your own day, a brief, age-appropriate anecdote that might open the door for them to share in return. "My meeting today was a bit chaotic. Reminds me of that time in your class when..."
That's excellent. It shows vulnerability and creates a more reciprocal space. Another valuable ritual, regardless of age, is a bedtime check-in. This is often a time when guards are down and kids feel safest to share.
Oh, the bedtime check-in. That's a sacred time for many families. Even if it's just for a minute or two. It could be as simple, "What was one good thing and one not so good thing that happened today?" Or "Is there anything on your mind before you try to sleep?"
And for younger kids, it could be a storytelling ritual where they get to decide a character or an event in the story, which subtly invites them to share their own experiences through narrative.
That's such a clever way to get them talking without feeling pressured. So, we've talked about car rides, snack times, bedtime. Are there other less obvious times or ways to check in?
Absolutely. Think about shared activities. Doing chores together, cooking, playing a board game, going for a walk or a bike ride. These activities provide a natural backdrop for conversation without the intensity of sitting face to face and having a formal talk.
I've found that doing something side by side is much less intimidating than direct eye contact. You can glance at each other or focus on the task at hand, and conversation flows more organically.
It really does. And for families with multiple children, you might want to consider individual check-ins. Even if it's just 5 minutes with each child, ensuring they each have dedicated one-on-one time can make a big difference. This prevents any one child from feeling overlooked.
That's so important. Giving each child that focused attention says, "You are seen, you are heard, and you matter individually."
And remember how we talked in episode 7 about active listening? These daily check-ins are the perfect practice ground. When your child shares something, whether it's a triumph or a struggle, remember to listen without judgment, without immediately offering solutions. This reinforces the trust you're building.
That's a fantastic callback to our last episode, Alex. It shows how these skills are interconnected. By creating these consistent check-ins and practicing active listening, we're not just gathering information about their day, we're actively nurturing their emotional well-being and strengthening our bond. We're showing them that they have a safe harbor in us.
You've hit the nail on the head, Lisa. This isn't just about communication, it's about connection. These rituals signal to your child, in countless small ways, I care about what's happening in your life. I'm interested. I'm here for you.
And the cumulative effect of these small, consistent interactions is enormous. It builds a deep reservoir of trust and openness that will serve your family through all stages of life. It's like putting little bricks in a wall, day after day, creating something strong and enduring.
A perfect analogy. So, to recap for our listeners, daily check-ins are essential rituals that build consistent connection with our children. We've discussed age-appropriate ideas, from simple questions for toddlers and preschoolers to more nuanced conversations with tweens and teens. We've highlighted the power of shared activities and one-on-one time, and we've reinforced how these daily moments are the perfect practice ground for the active listening skills we discussed previously.
And the core message is to be consistent, be present, and be open. Even a minute or two of focused attention can make a world of difference in keeping those communication lines wide open and your bond with your child strong. These rituals are investments in the long-term health of your family relationships.
Well said, Lisa. And these daily check-ins are the perfect segue into our next topic, which is all about validating those emotions that come up during these conversations. In episode 9, we'll be exploring the crucial art of showing your child they are truly understood.
That sounds like a vital step in building even deeper connection.
Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered daily check-ins. Now let's tackle validating emotions.
Absolutely, Alex. Those daily check-ins are like the small, consistent waterings that help a strong relationship grow. And today we're taking a deep dive into a topic that touches every single one of those check-ins and, frankly, every interaction we have with our kids, validating emotions. It's such a cornerstone of truly understanding them.
It really is, Lisa. We often hear parents say things like, "Oh, don't cry, it's not that bad," or "You're just being silly." While the intention is usually to comfort or downplay a situation that seems minor to us, it can have the opposite effect. It can make a child feel like their feelings aren't legitimate.
That's such a crucial point. It feels like we're inadvertently teaching them to dismiss their own internal experiences. So, when you say validating emotions, what does that really mean in practice? It's more than just acknowledging that they have feelings, right?
Exactly. Validating emotions means showing your child that you understand and accept their feelings, even if you don't necessarily agree with the reason for them, or you wouldn't react the same way yourself. It's about conveying, "I see you, your feelings are real, and I'm here with you." Think of it as being an emotional mirror.
An emotional mirror. I like that. So, instead of trying to fix the situation or tell them why they shouldn't feel that way, we're reflecting back what we're observing and what we understand their feeling to be.
Precisely. Imagine your child comes home from school upset because a friend wouldn't share a toy. A common non-validating response might be, "Oh, it's just a toy. There are plenty of other toys. Don't be so upset about it."
Right. And what that child might hear is, my feelings about this toy not being shared are silly or unimportant.
Yes. Now, let's contrast that with validation. You could say, "It sounds like you're feeling really frustrated and maybe a little sad because your friend didn't let you play with that toy. It's hard when you want to join in and you can't."
Oh, that's so different. The child hears, my grown-up sees that I'm frustrated and sad. They get that it's tough when I'm excluded. It acknowledges their internal state without minimizing it.
And this is where it feels a bit like a skill set we need to practice. It's not always intuitive. Often, our first instinct is to problem solve or offer a distraction. But validation comes first. It creates the safety for the child to then explore the problem with us.
So, the validation is like building a safe harbor. Once they feel heard and understood, they're more likely to open up about the deeper issue. It builds trust because they know we're not going to brush them aside.
That's a beautiful way to put it, Lisa. And to do this effectively, we need to be attuned to their emotional cues. This means observing their body language, their tone of voice, and the context of the situation. Sometimes, the emotion isn't explicitly stated.
So, if your child is stomping their feet and slamming a door, they might not say, I'm furious. We have to infer, and then reflect that back. Something like, wow, it looks like you're really angry right now. What's going on?
Exactly. And you're not saying, you should be angry. You're saying, I see the signs of anger. Is that what's happening? This is where the reflective listening skills we talked about in earlier episodes come into play. You're essentially reflecting back their emotional state.
Right. We've talked about active listening, and this is a very active form of it. It requires us to put our own agenda aside for a moment and just tune into their world.
And here's a key element. You don't have to love the behavior to validate the feeling. If your child is having a tantrum because they can't have a cookie before dinner, you can validate the feeling of disappointment or wanting that cookie. You can say, I see how much you want that cookie right now, and it makes you feel disappointed that you can't have it. And we need to wait until after dinner for cookies.
So validation doesn't mean agreeing to the demand or condoning the behavior. It means acknowledging the underlying emotion. You're separating the feeling from the action. That's powerful for setting boundaries, too.
It absolutely is. Because when a child feels their emotions are understood, they're far more likely to be receptive to boundaries and guidance. Conversely, when they feel dismissed, the resistance can build. So, let's break down some practical strategies for validation. The first is simply naming the emotion. As we discussed, sometimes children don't have the vocabulary to express what they're feeling. You can help them build that emotional vocabulary. If they're withdrawn, you might say, you seem quiet today. Are you feeling a bit sad or perhaps worried about something?
Naming it helps them connect the dots internally. Oh, this heavy feeling, that's sadness.
Another strategy is to reflect the feeling using empathetic language. This means phrasing it as a statement of understanding, often starting with it sounds like, or I hear that. For instance, if your child is upset about not making a sports team, you could say, it sounds like you're feeling really disappointed and maybe a bit left out right now because you didn't make the team.
And the I hear that part is important because it signals that you're actively listening and processing what they're communicating, not just hearing sounds.
Exactly. A third powerful tool is to briefly explain the why behind their feeling, drawing on what you know about your child. So, back to the friend not sharing the toy. You could say, it sounds like you're feeling frustrated and sad because you were really looking forward to playing with that toy with your friend, and it's disappointing when that doesn't happen.
That adds another layer. It shows you understand not just the emotion, but also the context that's making them feel that way. You're connecting the dots for them.
And importantly, validation can be nonverbal. Sometimes a simple nod, a gentle hand on their shoulder, or just sitting with them in silence while they cry can convey immense understanding and support without a single word.
I recall a time my son was incredibly upset after a minor perceived injustice at school. He didn't want to talk, he just wanted to be held. And that physical closeness, that quiet solidarity, was exactly what he needed. He visibly seemed to calm down just from that sense of presence.
That's a perfect example. Our presence can be the most validating thing. Now, let's revisit our friend, the emotional mirror. When we reflect back their emotions accurately, what happens?
Well, for starters, the child feels seen. They feel like their inner world matters. This can reduce the intensity of the emotion because they're not alone with it. It's like they're not drowning, they have a life raft.
And it helps them process. By hearing their feeling named and reflected, they can start to understand it better themselves. It's like putting a label on something that was previously a jumbled mess of sensation. This is crucial for developing emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and defuse conflict.
And we're building that foundation for our children right from the start with this practice. When we validate their feelings, we're teaching them that emotions are okay, that they are normal responses to situations, and that they can be managed and understood.
This directly leads to kids who are more resilient. When they know that difficult feelings will eventually pass and that they have support, they're less likely to get completely overwhelmed by setbacks. They learn that a bad mood isn't permanent and that they have the capacity to navigate through it.
So, in essence, validating emotions is about saying, your feelings are valid, and I'm here to help you understand them and get through them. It's a fundamental building block for a strong parent-child relationship.
It truly is. And it's a skill that gets easier with practice. The more you try to reflect your child's emotions, the more attuned you'll become to their subtle cues, and the more natural it will feel. Remember, the goal isn't to agree with every emotion or action, but to acknowledge the feeling behind it.
Let's quickly recap the key takeaways for our listeners. First, validation means showing your child you understand and accept their feelings. It's about conveying, I see you, your feelings are real, and I'm here with you. Second, avoid dismissing or minimizing their emotions. Instead of saying it's not that bad, try to understand what they're experiencing. Third, use practical strategies like naming the emotion, reflecting feelings with empathetic language, and explaining the likely cause of their feelings. And remember, nonverbal support like a hug or just being present can be incredibly validating.
That's a fantastic summary, Lisa. By consistently validating our children's emotions, we create a safe space for them to explore their inner world. We help them build emotional resilience, foster self-awareness, and strengthen their sense of trust in us. This lays the groundwork for deeper connections and better communication, especially when disagreements inevitably arise.
And speaking of disagreements, that's exactly what we'll be tackling in our next episode. We're going to explore how the skills of validation and active listening help us navigate conflict with our children.
That's right. We'll be talking about navigating conflict constructively, building on the foundation of understanding emotions we've solidified today. Next episode, Navigating Conflict, talking through disagreements constructively. Welcome back. Last time we covered validating your child's emotions. Now, let's tackle conflict.
Oh boy, conflict. Just saying the word can make some parents tense up. It's easy to think of disagreements as something to avoid, but the truth is, how we navigate conflict with our children can actually be a powerful tool for building stronger, more resilient bonds.
Exactly. Today, we're talking about navigating conflict, how to talk through disagreements constructively. We'll share strategies that can help turn those potentially damaging arguments into opportunities for growth and understanding.
So, conflict is often seen as negative. Kids might yell, whine, shut down, or even say hurtful things. And as parents, we might feel frustrated, angry, or just plain exhausted. It's easy to fall into patterns that make things worse.
It is. But imagine this. Instead of seeing conflict as a battle to be won or lost, we see it as a chance to teach valuable life skills. Skills like problem solving, healthy communication, and empathy.
That's a much more positive way to frame it. So, How do we begin to shift our perspective and our approach when disagreements arise?
The first step, and this builds directly on what we discussed last episode, is to remain calm. I know, easier said than done, but if you react with intense emotion, you're likely to escalate the situation. Take a deep breath. Count to 10. Give yourself a moment to gather your thoughts before responding.
This relates to emotional regulation, doesn't it? We need to model that for our children. If we're flying off the handle, they're learning to do the same.
Precisely. And once you've taken a moment, the next vital step is to listen. Truly listen. Not to interrupt, not to prepare your rebuttal, but to understand your child's perspective. Ask open-ended questions. What's going on? How are you feeling about this? What's important to you here?
This is where our active listening skills from episode 7 come into play. We need to be genuinely curious about their side of the story. Sometimes, just feeling heard can de-escalate the entire situation.
Absolutely. And then we validate. Even if you don't agree with their actions or their reasoning, you can acknowledge their feelings. Phrases like, I can see you're really upset about this, or it sounds like you feel very frustrated because, are gold.
So we've calmed ourselves, we've listened, and we validated their feelings. Now what? We can't just let bad behavior slide, can we?
No, we can't. This is where we separate the behavior from the emotion. We can validate the feeling without condoning the action. For example, I understand you're angry that your brother took your toy. It's okay to feel angry, but it's not okay to hit him.
Ah, I see. So, we acknowledge the emotion, but then we clearly state the boundary about the behavior. That's a really important distinction.
It is. And then we move towards problem solving. This is where the magic of constructive conflict resolution happens. Instead of you dictating the solution, invite your child to be part of it. You can say, we have a problem here. How can we solve this together?
That sounds empowering for them. It shifts them from being a recipient of consequences to an active participant.
Exactly. And this is where you brainstorm solutions. Encourage them to come up with ideas. Sometimes their ideas will be unrealistic, and that's okay. You can guide them. What are some possible ways we could handle this next time? What can we do right now to make this better?
And as parents, we need to be prepared to compromise, too, right? It's not always about them giving in.
Absolutely. It's a negotiation. You might say, I can agree to X, but I need you to agree to Y. It's about finding a solution that works for everyone to the best of your ability. And sometimes, the best solution is an agreement to disagree for now, with a plan to revisit it.
That's a good point. Not every disagreement needs an immediate, perfect resolution. Sometimes a cooling off period and a commitment to revisit the issue later is the most mature way to handle it.
Let's recap the core elements of constructive conflict resolution. First, manage your own emotions. Stay calm. Second, listen actively to understand your child's perspective. Third, validate their feelings. Acknowledge their emotions without necessarily agreeing with their behavior. Fourth, clearly state boundaries regarding behavior. Fifth, collaborate on solutions. Invite your child to brainstorm and problem solve with you. And finally, be open to compromise and finding mutually agreeable solutions.
That sounds like a well-rounded approach. It emphasizes respect, communication, and shared responsibility, even in disagreement. It really does turn conflict into an opportunity for learning.
It does. And it's particularly important as children get older. Their desire for independence and their developing understanding of fairness often lead to more friction. Teaching them these skills now will serve them throughout their lives. Think about your workplace, your friendships, your romantic relationships. The ability to navigate disagreements respectfully is paramount.
It's a transferable skill, for sure. And it's also about teaching them resilience. Children who learn to navigate conflict constructively are likely to develop a stronger sense of self-efficacy. They learn that they can face challenges and find solutions.
This ties back to the idea of modeling. When children see you and your partner, or you and other family members, discussing disagreements respectfully, they absorb that. They see that conflict doesn't have to be destructive. It can be a part of life that leads to resolution and deeper understanding.
And it also teaches them that their voice matters and that their needs can be considered even when they clash with others. This leads us perfectly into our next episode, which is all about respecting your child's space and individuality.
That's right. We've talked about connecting, listening, and now navigating conflict. Next time, we'll explore how to balance that connection with allowing our children the space they need to grow and develop their own unique identities. It's about understanding that a strong bond doesn't mean being glued at the hip.
So, remember to breathe, listen, validate, set boundaries, and collaborate. These are your key tools for turning family disagreements into opportunities for growth.
Thanks for listening. Respecting your child's space and individuality is vital.
A dance, I like that. So, Alex, we've spent a lot of time talking about how to talk and connect with our kids, especially in those early years. But sometimes don't kids actually need us to not be talking to them, or to back off a bit?
Absolutely, Lisa. And that's exactly what we're exploring today. This is episode 11, and we're focusing on respecting space and individuality. It's about how to recognize when your child needs space, how to communicate those needs respectfully, and how this becomes even more important as they grow. We'll also link back to some of the shifting dynamics we discussed when talking about tweens and teens in episode 5.
Okay, so it's about striking that balance. Not being overbearing, but not being absent either. How do we even begin to figure out when our child needs space? It feels like it could be so subtle.
It really can be. We need to develop a kind of emotional radar for our kids. Think about their age and typical developmental stage. A very young child might signal their need for space by turning away, becoming fussy, or simply moving away from your embrace. They're not rejecting you. They're just signaling, I need a moment.
So, for a toddler, it might be them crawling away from a hug or refusing a toy you're holding out, not because the toy is bad, but because they want to explore on their own terms for a bit.
Exactly. As they get a little older, say school-aged, this can manifest as wanting to play independently, choosing their own activities without constant input, or wanting to hang out with friends without a parent hovering. With older kids, especially teens, it could be needing privacy in their room, wanting to process things internally before sharing, or even just wanting downtime without constant questioning.
And we, as parents, often struggle with that, don't we? Our instinct is to be involved, to know what's going on. So, recognizing these signals is the first step. What's the next? How do we respond when we see those signals?
The key is to respond with understanding, not with pressure. If your child is turning away from you, don't force the interaction. Instead, you can acknowledge it gently. You might say something like, okay, I see you're busy with that right now. I'll be here if you want to talk later, or it looks like you're really focused on your game. So let's chat after you're done.
That sounds like a gentle way of saying, I respect your need for uninterrupted time. It's not a rejection of them, but an acknowledgement of their current state.
Precisely. And this directly relates to respecting their individuality. Every child is unique. They have different temperaments, different ways of processing emotions, and different needs for social interaction versus solitude. What one child needs might be the opposite of what their sibling needs. Our job as parents is to learn and adapt to each child's individual style.
This is so important. I remember when our kids were younger, one would happily chatter away about their day, every detail. The other would give one-word answers. We learned not to push the second child for more, but to create opportunities for them to share when they felt comfortable, maybe during a car ride or while doing a shared activity.
That's a fantastic example of learning to adapt. You were creating a space where they could share on their terms. This is what we mean by respecting individuality. It's about seeing them as a whole person with their own preferences and needs, not just an extension of ourselves or someone who must conform to our expectations of how they should behave or communicate.
And as they get older, this becomes even more critical. Remember in episode 5, we discussed the shifting dynamics with tweens and teens? This concept of space and individuality is at the heart of that. They're literally trying to figure out who they are, separate from us.
You've hit on a crucial link. For teens, their need for privacy and independence often increases significantly. They're building their social identities, exploring their own interests, and forming their own opinions. Pushing too hard, constantly questioning, or not respecting their boundaries can feel like an invasion.
And that invasion can lead to withdrawal, resentment, and a breakdown in communication. It's like if I kept trying to read your personal journal, even if I loved you dearly. You'd feel violated, and you'd probably stop trusting me with your private thoughts.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. So, how do we as parents navigate this with teens? How do we ensure they feel respected while still having a sense of parental guidance and connection? One way is to explicitly communicate our respect for their privacy and space. You can say things like, I respect that you need your own space to think and unwind. I won't pry, but please know I'm here if you ever want to talk about anything at all. This gives them permission to have their private time while also opening the door for communication.
So, we're setting the stage. We're saying, I'm not going to force this, but the door is always open. It's about trust.
It is. And it's also about being aware of when they might be more open to talking. Often, the best conversations with teens happen organically, not during a formal sit down. It might be in the car, while making dinner together, or during a walk. These are times when they're preoccupied with an activity and the pressure to perform socially is lower.
That's where those daily check-ins we talked about, those rituals for connection, become so valuable. Even if the check-in is brief, it maintains that underlying current of connection that makes bigger conversations possible later.
Exactly. And speaking of rituals, creating structured opportunities for connection that also allow for individual expression is key. This could be a family game night where everyone gets to choose a game, or a family meal where everyone shares something positive from their day. It's about shared time, but with room for individual contributions.
So, it's not about eliminating communication, but about shifting its nature. It's less about direct questioning and more about creating an environment where sharing feels safe and natural. We're not just talking at them, we're creating a space for them.
That's a beautiful way to put it, Lisa. We're creating a space for them. And part of that space includes their individuality. This means accepting that they might have different friends than we choose, different tastes in music, or different beliefs. It doesn't mean we abdicate our responsibility. It means we engage with their choices and perspectives with curiosity rather than judgment.
And if their choices do raise concerns, how do we address those while still respecting their space and individuality? This feels like walking a very fine line.
It is. This is where linking back to our discussions about tackling tough questions and navigating conflict becomes essential. When you have concerns, approach it from a place of love and concern, not accusation. Use I statements. Instead of saying, why are you friends with that person? Try, I'm a little concerned about some of the influences you're being exposed to. Can we talk about what you see in that friendship?
So, you're expressing your feelings and inviting them into a dialogue rather than issuing a decree. And you're acknowledging that they have a perspective on this friendship, even if you don't fully understand it yet.
Precisely. And importantly, sometimes the best way to respect their individuality is to allow them to make small mistakes and learn from them. We can't shield them from every negative consequence. Allowing them to experience the natural outcomes of their choices within safe boundaries is a powerful way for them to develop their own sense of judgment and autonomy.
That's such a hard one for parents, though. My instinct is to intervene and prevent them from getting hurt or making a mistake.
Mine too. But think about it. If we always step in, they never learn to rely on their own judgment. They don't develop resilience. So, it's a calculated risk. We offer guidance, we have conversations, but we also allow them the space to navigate some of these challenges on their own. It builds confidence and self-reliance, which are hallmarks of a strong, independent individual.
So, a really key takeaway here is that respecting space and individuality isn't about detachment. It's about a different kind of connection. It's about being a secure base from which they can explore, knowing that the anchor is there if they need it, but being allowed to sail out on your own.
That's a perfect summary, Lisa. It's a dance. We step forward to connect, we step back to give space, and we constantly adjust our rhythm to match theirs. It's about understanding that connection doesn't always mean constant proximity or conversation. Sometimes, the deepest connection comes from trusting your child to be their own person and letting them know you trust them.
And by trusting them, by giving them that space and respecting their individuality, we're actually fostering their independence and their ability to form healthy relationships later in life. We're preparing them to be adults who can also navigate personal space and individuality in their own connections.
Absolutely. And this leads us directly into our next episode. We've talked about how to connect, how to listen, how to navigate conflict, and now how to give space. But all of this is amplified when our children see us modeling good communication ourselves.
So episode 12 is about being the example. That makes so much sense. We can't expect them to communicate respectfully if we don't do it ourselves.
Exactly. So, next time, we'll be diving into Chapter 12, Modeling Communication, being the example your child needs.
Excellent. So, to recap today, respecting your child's space and individuality is not about pulling away, but about adjusting your connection style to meet their needs. It involves recognizing their cues for space, responding with gentle acknowledgement, and understanding that each child is unique. For older children and teens, this means respecting their privacy and allowing them opportunities to develop their own autonomy, while keeping communication channels open through organic conversations and consistent, trust-building interactions.
Well said, Lisa. And this dance of connection, respecting space and individuality, is a lifelong skill that benefits both parent and child immensely. Thanks for listening. Welcome back. Last time we covered respecting space and individuality. Now, let's tackle modeling communication.
That's a great follow-up, Alex. It makes me think about how much our kids are always watching us, even when we think they're not paying attention.
Exactly. Children learn more from what we do than what we say. When it comes to communication skills, our kids are constantly observing how we interact with them, with each other, and with the world around us. This is why modeling effective communication is perhaps one of the most powerful parenting tools we have.
I've definitely noticed that with my own kids. When I'm stressed and snap at them, they tend to get irritable too. But when I take a moment to communicate calmly, they respond in kind. It's like they're mirroring my behavior.
That's because they are mirroring our behavior. Research shows that children as young as infants begin observing and imitating social cues and communication patterns. By the time they're toddlers, they're already internalizing how we handle emotions, resolve conflicts, and express ourselves.
So it's not just about teaching them what to say, but showing them how to communicate through our actions?
Precisely. And this brings us back to the foundation we discussed in our first episode about conscious communication. When we're intentional about how we communicate, we're not just solving immediate problems, we're teaching lifelong skills.
That's a big responsibility, isn't it? Knowing that our every interaction is being observed and potentially copied.
It is, but it's also an incredible opportunity. Think of it this way. If you want your child to be a good listener, you need to be a good listener first. If you want them to express their feelings respectfully, you need to show them what that looks like.
Let's break this down a bit. What are some specific communication skills we should be modeling for our kids?
Great question. Let's start with active listening. When your child is speaking to you, put down your phone, make eye contact, and truly focus on what they're saying. Show them that their thoughts and feelings matter by giving them your full attention.
That's so important. I know I'm guilty of sometimes being distracted when my kids are talking, especially when I'm busy with something else. But when I do give them my full attention, I can see how much more they open up.
Exactly. And when we model active listening, we're teaching them several important lessons. That people deserve respect when they speak, that what they have to say is valuable, and how to listen attentively to others.
Another thing that comes to mind is how we handle disagreements. Kids see how we argue with our partners, family members, or even customer service representatives.
That's a crucial one. When children witness respectful conflict resolution, they learn that disagreements don't have to be destructive. They learn that it's possible to have different opinions and still treat each other with kindness and respect.
I've been working on this with my spouse. Instead of raising our voices when we disagree, we're trying to talk through issues calmly. I've noticed our oldest son starting to use similar language when he's upset with his friends.
That's perfect. You're seeing the power of modeling in action. And this isn't just about big moments. It's about the everyday interactions that children observe. How you speak to the cashier at the grocery store, how you react when someone cuts you off in traffic, how you handle disappointment when plans change. All of these teach your child about communication.
It makes me think about how I respond to my kids' mistakes. When I stay calm and use constructive language, they seem more open to learning. When I get frustrated, they shut down.
That's because your tone and approach communicate more than your words. When we model patience and understanding, we show our children that mistakes are opportunities for growth, not reasons for shame. This teaches them to be resilient and to approach challenges with a problem-solving mindset rather than fear.
What about expressing emotions? How do we model healthy, emotional expression?
That's another essential skill. Children need to see that it's okay to feel emotions, but there are appropriate ways to express them. When we acknowledge our own feelings, I'm feeling frustrated right now, so I'm going to take a few deep breaths. We teach emotional literacy and self-regulation.
I like that example. It shows that emotions are valid, but that we have choices about how we respond to them. That's different from pretending we're not feeling anything or blaming others for how we feel.
Precisely. And when we model healthy emotional expression, we're giving our children permission to feel their own emotions while teaching them constructive ways to express them. This sets them up for emotional intelligence throughout their lives.
Let's talk about apologies. I think how we apologize when we make mistakes as parents is really important for modeling.
Absolutely. When we sincerely apologize to our children, we're teaching them several valuable lessons. That everyone makes mistakes, that taking responsibility is important, and that apologies are about repairing relationships, not just saying, I'm sorry.
I remember one time I snapped at my daughter unfairly. Instead of brushing it off, I apologized later and explained why I reacted the way I did. She said, "It's okay, Mom. I get frustrated sometimes, too." It was like a light bulb moment for both of us.
That's a beautiful example. By acknowledging your mistake and explaining your feelings, you not only repaired the moment, but also taught her that communication can be vulnerable and authentic. And you reinforce the idea that it's okay to be human and make mistakes.
What about technology? How we use our phones and devices around our kids sends a message about what we value.
That's a modern challenge we all face. When we're constantly checking our phones during conversations, we're modeling that devices take priority over people. Setting boundaries around technology use shows our children that face-to-face connection matters.
I've noticed that when I put my phone away during dinner or when my kids want to talk, they seem more relaxed and engaged. It's like they feel more important.
They do feel more important because you're showing them through your actions that they have your undivided attention. In a world full of digital distractions, this is a powerful lesson about presence and focused attention.
Let's talk about some practical strategies. What are some specific things parents can do to model effective communication?
First, practice what I call the pause. Before responding to your child, especially when you're feeling emotional, take a moment to breathe and think about how you want to respond. This models self-regulation and thoughtful communication.
That's a great one. I've tried that when I feel myself getting frustrated with my kids. Instead of reacting immediately, I take a breath. It really changes the dynamic of the conversation.
Second, use I statements. Instead of saying, "You always make a mess," try, "I feel frustrated when I see toys all over the floor because I trip over them." This models taking responsibility for your feelings rather than blaming others.
I've found that when I use I statements, my kids are less defensive and more receptive. It's like I'm not attacking them, just sharing my feelings.
Exactly. And third, practice active listening by paraphrasing what your child says. So what I'm hearing is that you're feeling sad because your friend couldn't play today. This shows you're truly listening and helps your child feel understood.
That's a skill I've been working on, and it's amazing how it changes the conversation. My daughter will often say, "Yes, that's exactly what I mean," when I paraphrase.
Fourth, demonstrate respect even when you disagree. You can say, "I understand why you feel that way, and I see it differently." This teaches that it's possible to value someone's perspective even when you don't share it.
That's particularly important as our kids get older and have more opinions of their own. I've noticed with my teenager that when I respect her viewpoint, even when I don't agree, she's more likely to listen to mine.
And finally, apologize when you make mistakes. As we discussed earlier, this models accountability and shows that nobody is perfect. It also teaches that relationships can be repaired through honest communication.
These are all really practical strategies. But I imagine there are times when modeling communication is more challenging, like when we're exhausted.
Welcome back to Talk to Your Kids, Build Unbreakable Bonds. We're in episode 13 of our 15-part series. Last time, we explored how vital it is to model effective communication. Now, we're talking about personalized communication, adapting our approach to fit each unique child.
That makes so much sense, Alex. It's easy to get caught up in general advice, but if you have more than one child, you know firsthand that they are each their own little universe, aren't they? My Leo is a whirlwind of energy, needs things to be quick and direct. Then there's Maya, who is much more reflective, needs quiet time to process, and is sensitive to tone. Trying to talk to them the exact same way just wouldn't work.
Exactly. And that's the core of personalizing your communication. It's about recognizing your child's unique personality, their temperament, and their developmental stage, and then adjusting how you speak, listen, and engage with them accordingly. Think about it like this. If you were trying to teach someone a new skill, you wouldn't use the same method for a visual learner as you would for an auditory learner, would you? You'd adapt.
No, you wouldn't. You'd find out what works best for them. For Leo, a quick, enthusiastic nudge gets him moving. For Maya, a gentle, quiet invitation to share her thoughts is more effective. So, we need to be observers, right? Really watch and listen to how our children respond to different approaches.
Absolutely. Observation is key. And this taps back into so many conversations we've had earlier in the series. Remember when we talked about talking with toddlers in episode 2? We emphasized simple language, repetition, and engaging their senses because their brains are developing rapidly and they learn through concrete experiences. That approach might still be useful for a younger child, but it needs to evolve as they grow.
Right. And then in episode 3, for school-aged children, we discussed how their world expands and conversations can become more complex, often driven by their curiosity and their interactions with peers. A child in this stage might respond well to direct questions and clear explanations, but still needs reassurance and emotional validation.
Precisely. And as we moved into the tween years, in episode 4, we saw how friendships and feelings become paramount. Communication here often needs to be more about listening to their worries and triumphs, and less about giving directives. Tweens might not always want to talk head on, So creating opportunities for more casual, incidental conversations becomes critical.
And then, of course, the teenage years, episode 5. That's where the tightrope walk really begins. They're seeking independence, their brains are still developing, and they can be incredibly sensitive to perceived judgment. So, your communication style with a teenager needs to be about respecting their evolving autonomy, offering support without smothering, and allowing them space to figure things out for themselves. It's less about telling them what to do and more about asking questions that help them think.
Yes, it's about shifting from being the primary director to being a trusted advisor. So, when we talk about personalization, we're not reinventing the wheel for each child. We're taking the foundational principles from each of these developmental stages and tailoring them to the individual child within that stage. For example, even within the teenage bracket, one teen might be an open book, willing to discuss anything, while another is intensely private and might only share with a carefully worded, non-confrontational question during a car ride.
That's such a good point. It's not just about age, but also about individual temperament. Some kids are naturally more outgoing, some are more shy. Some are highly analytical and need logical explanations, while others are more intuitive and respond to emotional resonance. How do we figure out these individual nuances?
It starts with paying attention to their reactions. What makes them light up? What makes them shut down? Do they thrive on praise? Or do they respond better to a simple acknowledgement of effort? Are they easily overwhelmed by too much stimulation? Or do they need that energy to engage? For instance, a highly sensitive child might need you to approach them with a softer tone, more personal space, and to perhaps discuss sensitive topics when they are already calm and relaxed, not in the heat of the moment.
So, if I have a child who gets very anxious when asked direct questions in front of others, I might choose to have a more in-depth chat with them one-on-one. Or perhaps even write them a note if that feels less confrontational for them.
That's a brilliant example, Lisa. And you might also notice that some children prefer to communicate through actions or shared activities. Maybe it's a game of chess, going for a hike, or even cooking together. These shared experiences can create a relaxed environment where deeper conversations can naturally emerge. For these kids, forcing a sit-down talk might feel intrusive.
It's like we're developing a language for each child, a way of speaking that resonates specifically with them. And it requires us to be flexible, doesn't it? We can't just stick to one script.
Flexibility is paramount. And on that note, let's pause for a moment and bring back another concept we touched upon in episode 7, the art of listening without fixing. This is crucial for personalization. When you personalize your approach, you're not just adapting how you speak, but also how you listen. Some children need you to listen intently and offer empathy before offering any advice. Others might appreciate a quick analytical insight after they've had their say.
So it's about reading their cues on what they need from our listening. Do they want me to just be a sounding board, or are they looking for solutions? If I jump in with solutions too quickly for a child who just wants to be heard, I might inadvertently invalidate their feelings.
Exactly. And understanding their communication style also helps us manage conflict more effectively, which we covered in episode 10. If you know your child is prone to shutting down when feeling criticized, you'll actively try to phrase feedback in a way that focuses on behavior, not personality, and avoid accusatory language. You might say, I noticed the toys weren't put away, and that made it harder for me to walk through the living room, rather than, you never clean up your mess.
That's such a practical distinction. And it links directly to validating emotions, which we discussed in episode 9. For a child who expresses their emotions very outwardly, your validation might involve mirroring their intensity. For a child who internalizes their feelings, your validation might be a quiet, gentle acknowledgement. I see you're feeling frustrated right now, spoken calmly can be very different to, wow, you're really upset, aren't you? Delivered with less intensity.
It's about meeting them where they are. And this also connects to respecting their space and individuality, as we discussed in episode 11. Personalization means understanding when they need that space to process and when they are reaching out for connection. A child who is typically reserved might signal their need for connection through a subtle gesture, like sitting near you or initiating brief eye contact. We need to be attuned to those softer signals.
It sounds like a continuous learning process. We have to keep observing, keep adapting. It's not a static thing. A communication style that worked beautifully one year might need tweaking the next as the child grows and their needs change.
That's the beauty and the challenge of it. Children are not static beings. They are constantly evolving. So, our communication must evolve too. And this really underscores the importance of creating those daily check-ins that we talked about in episode 8. Those consistent, low-pressure opportunities to connect provide a baseline for understanding how your child is feeling and communicating on any given day, allowing you to adjust your approach in real time.
So, to recap for our listeners, personalizing communication means moving beyond one-size-fits-all strategies and tailoring your approach to your child's unique personality, temperament, and developmental stage. This involves being a keen observer of their reactions, understanding their preferred learning and communication styles, and being flexible enough to adapt your language, your listening, and your approach to conflict and emotional expression. It's about meeting them where they are with respect for their individuality and continually adjusting as they grow. And it builds upon all the previous episodes, from understanding toddlers to navigating the teenage years.
Well said, Lisa. And this journey of personalization isn't always smooth sailing. There will be times when even our best efforts feel insufficient. That's precisely what we'll be tackling in our next episode, episode 14, where we'll discuss overcoming communication roadblocks and what to do when talking simply gets tough.
That sounds like a crucial topic. We'll see you then.
Welcome back. Last time we discussed communication roadblocks.
Yes, Alex. We explored how to handle resistance, silence, defensiveness, and disconnection.
Today, we're going to build on those ideas and look at how these strategies help us maintain connection, even when conversations feel difficult. Remember, when a child is resistant, it often means they feel unsafe or overwhelmed. Pushing harder will only make them withdraw more.
So, instead of demanding an answer, we offer space, saying, I can see you don't want to talk about this right now. That's okay. I'm here when you're ready, can be incredibly disarming. It communicates that our connection isn't conditional on them sharing exactly what we want.
Precisely. This is especially important for teens who need their autonomy respected. Offering space honors that. It's not giving up, it's letting them know you haven't given up on them.
And for those moments of silence, we try to validate their feelings, even if we don't understand the exact reason. Offering words like, it seems like you're feeling pretty quiet right now. Maybe you're sad or tired. It's all right to feel that way, can help unlock their ability to express themselves.
Exactly. That phrase, it's all right to feel that way, is powerful. It reassures them, I'm observing you, I'm noticing you, and I'm not judging. This creates an opening. Being. Welcome back. We're here to wrap up our series on building unbreakable bonds through communication.
It's hard to believe we've reached the end of our series already. It feels like just yesterday we were starting with the foundation of why talking matters. What have you found most helpful throughout our conversations about parent-child communication?
What I found most fascinating is how these communication principles aren't just for when kids are young. They evolve and adapt as our children grow, but the core foundation remains the same. Remember in our first episode when we talked about creating that foundation? Well, today we're looking at how that foundation becomes a lifelong structure that supports our relationship through every stage.
That's so true. From toddlers to teens, the way we communicate changes, but the importance of connection doesn't. Let's quickly recap some of those key developmental stages we covered.
Great idea. We started with toddlers and preschoolers in episode 2, where we discussed how their little minds are like sponges absorbing everything. We talked about matching their developmental level, using simple language, and turning everyday moments into conversation opportunities. Remember how we said that at this age, more talking doesn't necessarily mean more understanding?
Yes. And then in episode 3, we moved to school-aged children who are natural explorers. We covered how their questions become more complex and how important it is to nurture that curiosity while setting boundaries. Those why questions can definitely test a parent's patience.
Absolutely. And in episode 4, we tackled the friendships, feelings, and firsts of the tween years. This is when social connections become incredibly important and emotions can feel overwhelming. We discussed how to help them navigate these waters without taking over.
Then came the teen years in episode 5, that tightrope walk between giving freedom and maintaining connection. Teenagers push boundaries but also need guidance, and finding that balance is one of the greatest challenges.
Exactly. And throughout all these stages, we've emphasized some core principles that remain constant. Let's talk about the first one, creating safe spaces for communication. This was central to episode 7 when we discussed the art of listening without fixing.
The safe space concept is so fundamental. It's about making our children feel that they can come to us with anything without fear of judgment or immediate criticism. This doesn't mean we agree with everything they say, but that we're willing to hear them out.
And that connects directly to what we covered in episode 9 about validating emotions. When we validate, we're essentially saying, I hear you, and it's okay to feel this way. This doesn't mean we condone behavior we don't like, but we acknowledge the underlying emotions. Remember when we share that analogy about emotions being like waves? They come, they peak, and then they recede if we don't fight against them?
I loved that analogy. It's so helpful for parents who might feel overwhelmed by their child's big emotions. Instead of trying to stop the wave, we learn to surf it. And then in episode 8, we talked about daily check-ins, creating those rituals for constant connection.
The daily rituals are so powerful because they build connection over time. Whether it's a bedtime conversation, a car ride chat, or a weekend breakfast talk, these regular moments accumulate to create a reservoir of connection that can withstand difficult times. We emphasize that these check-ins should be brief but consistent. Quality matters, but so does frequency.
And let's not forget about what we covered in episode 10, navigating conflict constructively. Every family will have disagreements, but we can teach our children how to handle conflict respectfully. This is modeling communication in action.
Which leads perfectly to episode 12, modeling communication ourselves. We can't expect our children to communicate well if we don't demonstrate it. This means being mindful of how we speak to them, our partners, and even ourselves. Kids are always watching and learning from our example.
In episode 11, we also discussed respecting space and individuality, that dance of connection where we give our children room to grow while maintaining our bond. It's a delicate balance between holding on and letting go.
And when communication gets tough, as we covered in episode 14, we need strategies to overcome roadblocks. This might include taking breaks when emotions run high, using statements that start with I to express our feelings without blame, or seeking outside help when needed.
So many valuable insights. But what ties all these concepts together into a lifelong journey? How do we sustain these communication practices as our children grow into adults?
That's the million-dollar question, Lisa. The truth is, while the specific techniques might evolve, the underlying principles remain remarkably consistent. Think of it like a garden. You don't stop tending it just because the plants mature. The soil preparation, our foundation, stays the same, but the watering schedule, the frequency of conversations, and the specific care the topics discussed change as the garden develops.
I love that garden analogy. So even when our children are grown, we still need to tend to that relationship through communication, but our approach might look different?
Precisely. With young children, we initiate most conversations. With teens, it becomes more of a dance. Sometimes they open up, sometimes we need to create the space for that to happen. With adult children, the balance shifts even further, but the need for connection remains. The key is recognizing that communication is not a one-way street, but a mutual exchange that evolves over time.
What about when our communication has been less than ideal in the past? Can we still build those unbreakable bonds, or is damage sometimes too great to repair?
That's an important question, Lisa. The beauty of communication is that it's never too late to start or to improve. Even if there have been communication breakdowns in the past, we can begin today to create new patterns. This might mean acknowledging past difficulties, apologizing where needed, and consistently demonstrating through actions that we're committed to connecting better going forward.
That's encouraging to hear. So the journey isn't about perfection, but about consistent effort and growth?
Exactly. It's not about being a perfect communicator, but being a present one. The unbreakable bonds we're talking about aren't forged in flawlessness, but in authenticity, persistence, and love. When we stumble, and we all do, what matters most is how we recover and continue trying.
Let's talk about practical ways to sustain these communication habits over the long haul. What are some practices that have worked for parents whose children are now grown?
For what we've learned, several practices stand out. First, maintaining regular contact, not just when there's a problem, but for no reason at all. A simple thinking of you, text, or call can reinforce connection. Second, showing genuine interest in their lives as adults, their careers, their relationships, their passions. Third, respecting their boundaries while staying emotionally available. Fourth, being willing to adapt to their communication preferences. Some adult children prefer phone calls, others text, others occasional visits.
And what about when our adult children make choices we disagree with? How do we communicate our values without being overbearing?
This is where our earlier principles really shine. We can share our perspective without judgment, express our concerns using I statements, and ultimately trust that we've laid the foundation. Sometimes that means agreeing to disagree while maintaining mutual respect. The goal isn't always to change their minds, but to ensure they know our door and our hearts remain open.
It seems like technology has both helped and complicated parent-child communication at all ages. What guidance do we have about navigating digital communication?
Technology is a tool, not a replacement for face-to-face connection. With young children, we discussed setting boundaries around screen time and ensuring that digital interactions don't replace in-person conversations. With teens, it's about teaching responsible online behavior and helping them understand the permanence and reach of their online communications. With adult children, technology can be a wonderful bridge, allowing connection regardless of distance. The key is using it intentionally and mindfully.
As we wrap up this series, what's the single most important takeaway you'd want parents to remember about sustaining communication bonds throughout their child's life?
I'd want parents to remember that communication is not a destination, but a journey. It's not something you achieve and then move on from. Instead, it's a living, evolving practice that requires attention, adaptation, and commitment. The unbreakable bond we're seeking isn't forged in flawlessness, but in the countless small moments of connection that accumulate over time.
And what about for those parents who might feel overwhelmed, thinking they need to overhaul all their communication habits at once?
Start small. Choose one area to focus on, perhaps improving your listening skills or creating a daily check-in ritual. Small, consistent changes are more sustainable than attempting everything at once. Remember that our children would rather have a parent who is imperfectly trying than one who is perfectly distant. Your effort itself communicates love and commitment.
That's such a comforting thought. It reminds me of what we discussed in episode 13 about personalized communication, adapting to each child's unique style. There's no one-size-fits-all approach, and that's okay.
Precisely. And that brings us back to where we started, the foundation of connection. Whether our children are toddlers, teens, or adults, the need for authentic, respectful communication remains. The way we express that connection may change, but the underlying need for connection doesn't.
Looking back over all 15 episodes, what are you most proud of having shared with our listeners?
I'm most proud of emphasizing that communication isn't about perfection, but presence. So many parents feel pressure to say the right thing at the right time. But what our children remember most is that we were there, that we made time for them, that we listened without judgment, that we love them unconditionally. The techniques we've discussed are tools, but the heart of communication is relationship.
That's beautiful. And as parents continue this journey, what encouragement would you offer them for the road ahead?
I'd encourage them to be patient with their children and with themselves. Building unbreakable bonds takes time. I'd remind them that small moments of connection accumulate into something significant over the years. And I'd urge them to remember that they're not alone. Every parent faces communication challenges, and seeking support is a sign of strength, not weakness.
What a perfect way to wrap up our series. We've covered so much ground, from the foundation of connection to navigating each developmental stage, from building safe spaces to overcoming roadblocks. It's been quite the journey.
Indeed, it has, Lisa. And while our series may be ending, the communication journey for each family continues. The tools we've shared are meant to support that lifelong adventure of connecting with our children at every age and stage. Whether our children are just beginning to speak or are raising children of their own, the principles of respectful, loving communication remain relevant.
So, as parents continue this journey, what's one final piece of wisdom you'd leave them with?
I'd leave them with this. The most powerful communication tool you have isn't what you say, but how you make your child feel. When they feel heard, valued, and loved, they develop the confidence to navigate the world. Your communication isn't just exchanging information, it's building a relationship that can weather any storm. That's the unbreakable bond we've been talking about. Not a bond that never breaks, but one that's strong enough to be repaired when it does.
What a profound insight. It reminds me that at the heart of all our communication strategies is love, the desire to connect, understand, and be understood by the people we care about most.
Exactly, Lisa. And with that, we come to the end of our series on talking to your kids and building unbreakable bonds. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember that communication is not just something you do, it's something you become. Through consistent practice, patience, and love, you can create connections that last a lifetime.
Thanks for listening to the series.